Hello, and welcome back to the Cinematography Salon podcast, where our mission is simply celebrating cinematography. I'm David Kruta, founder of Cinematography Salon and producer of the show. Recently, we traveled to Poland for Camerimage, where we spent a week surrounded by filmmakers, DPs, and friends new and old. And while we were there, we recorded something unforgettable, a series of conversations and deep dives into what makes cinematography truly magical. Our fantastic hosts, Ava Benjamin Shorr and Lauren Guiteras, led the discussions with their insight, curiosity, and passion for the art, working alongside Topher Hammond, who co-produced and ran cameras to make sure every interview looked and sounded top-notch. A massive thank you to the team at Fujifilm, who made these episodes possible and our trip unforgettable. Their continued involvement and support of this community is deeply appreciated, and we look forward to collaborating well into the future. We'll be releasing these special episodes alongside Season 3 of the podcast, so stay tuned. If you love this craft as much as we do, you're in the right place. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Cinematography Salon podcast. For the next several episodes, we will be recording in Torun, Poland during the 32nd annual Camerimage Film Festival. My name is Ava Benjamin Shorr, and today I am joined by my very special Camerimage co-host, Lauren Guiteras. For today's episode, we would like to welcome Rachel Clark, an accomplished English cinematographer whose narrative feature Edge of Summer is playing at Camerimage. Edge of Summer is about two 11-year-olds on holiday in Cornwall who discover something or someone in an abandoned local tin mine. We are incredibly excited to speak with her today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for asking me.
So Lauren and I had a chance to watch the film, and one of the most immediately striking things to me about Edge of Summer are the landscapes and the way you photograph them. I know the film was set in Cornwall. Did you guys ultimately shoot there? And how did you and director Lucy Cohen discuss shooting in such a dramatic landscape?
Yeah, we shot in Cornwall. The kind of landscape and the environment was so important to the film. And Lucy had actually written the script in the place we shot. So all the locations were already in her mind. And when I was reading the script, I didn't know this, but I was like, how are we going to find these places? And then I went and it was all there. So it was like walking into the script when I arrived. And so it was really important to us to film there, film as much as possible. I was just like constantly shooting like GVs and landscapes and nature. And I'd go to work early and I'd just grab the camera and shoot in the mornings. I'd be shooting at lunch. I'd shoot on wrap when the sun set. I was like obsessed with just capturing as much as possible. And I think it kind of shows because there's so much of it in the film. We couldn't shoot the whole movie in the place she wrote the script, so it was split between the real place and then the other side of, because Cornwall is like the long strip of the end of England, and it has two coasts. So we shot half the film on one coast and half the film on the other coast. So you get sunset in one place on one side and sunset in a different place on the other side, which was really like messing with my brain about where the light was going to be and making sure I kept it in the right place and stuff. And the mine was 3 different mines, all sandwiched together in different places. We had exterior mine where they run out and they come out into the cliffs. And then the interior mine was another mine somewhere else that didn't have a good view at all. And then we built a set for the kind of the main section around the hole, because it was not safe really for the kids to be kind of near this big hole, because the holes were really, really, really deep. So it was 3 different locations for the mine stuff as well. Yeah.
I mean, I think also on the subject of the landscapes, like I was curious about your choice of aspect ratio, and if you and the director had always had 2:3:9 in mind, or if you experimented with other aspect ratios in terms of like its relationship to the landscape in particular.
I think for me, I felt like it was always going to be 2:3:9 because the environment was so important. But Lucy, it's her first film. She'd done documentaries before. And so like when we started prepping, I would like, what aspect ratio do you want to shoot? She's like, I don't know what that means. Tell me. So it was like a lot of me. I kind of did lots of stills in different aspect ratios or cropped them and took pictures of people's faces and pictures of 2 people. And I just showed her like, this is how it might feel if a close up, this one might have space, but this one, we had talked about maybe, like more square or wide, like the both extremes. But I did loads of like photos and tests just to show her like how it would feel. And then we did some test shooting with some, not the real kids, just some other kids as like a kind of proof of concept for her, because people were, I guess, worried that she wanted to like have an experiment, like to test shooting a scene to see how she would direct the kids, to see how she would like cover a scene, how we talked about coverage. And so we did lots of like tests with Lucy before, and just to kind of get into it a bit. So in that test, I did different aspect ratios and stuff just to show her. Mm-hmm. But she really wanted it to be kind of wide to see the landscape and stuff. Yeah, but that was the reason. It felt really like, to me, I kind of thought that was the right decision, but obviously I involved her in that conversation too.
Wait, I have like kind of a follow-up question. So you were saying when you were shooting like before work and after work and at lunch and just kind of like taking the landscape in, and a lot of that ended up in the movie, were you like shooting on a B cam or a C cam that you owned, or were you just taking the main
Venice,
camera
yeah,
and just taking it out on your own?
Or like, while they'd be packing, like every night we would wrap, and the kind of beautiful magic hour, the sun, and the weather was changed so much every day because we're so exposed with the sea, and we're on this cliff, and every day the sky looked different, there were different colours and different weather, and the waves were different. So every day I was always kind of keeping an eye out of the window, like what was going on. And while the guys would pack up the truck and take down the lights, I'd just take the camera for like half an hour and go off on my own, like sit in the grass and take some pictures, and then I'd take the camera back to them when they'd packed everything up and be like, okay, I'm finished. And that's like, I've had my half an hour of therapy.
Yeah, and of collecting like a library, like you said, of like each different type of weather and each different type of sky for them to use in the edit where it was appropriate.
And then I also, because when I was I was a camera assistant and I was never allowed to like touch the camera, because I was so scared of it. And so I always like try and encourage my crew to like also do some GVs too, even if they don't end up in the movie. So I had this game of like, see who can get a shot in the movie. Mm-hmm. So I had like my trainee, my loader, my focus puller. I even the grip at one point was doing it. I was like, come on, everyone take the camera, everyone do some, you see what I'm doing, I want you to imagine like, what's the vibe, like what am we interested in, like flowers, grass, leaves, birds, whatever it is, like take the camera. If I'm doing a rehearsal or I'm talking to the director, just take it, go shoot some stuff. So I got everybody to shoot some like shots to try and get it in the movie. And I don't even know if any made it, but that was the game I made, just to encourage them to think about it and be involved.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said, that, as an AC, you maybe were scared to be touching the camera or whatever when you weren't supposed to, which it's interesting for me to hear that because I felt like the operating in the film was so strong. Mm-hmm. And like, I felt like the motion of the handheld felt very seamless. And I was wondering, like, is there a type of handheld setup that you found you prefer? And did you ever implement other stabilization devices for the film, such as Steadicam, gimbal, or dolly?
Yeah, I mean, handheld, I love handheld, and I do a lot of it, so I've got quite good at it, and it feels really natural to me to have a camera. And I have done, just before I shot this movie, I'd just done this crazy, intense movie where we didn't do any rehearsals. There was no script. It was all handheld. We were shooting for an hour at a time. Each take was like an hour long. And it was really like an immersive experience. We shot for like 15 days and the film was like 2 hours long. And it was just me in a room with 2 actors, not knowing what was going to happen. And I learned really quickly. And I've done 2 movies like this, the same director. And it just got me really good at learning, like trusting my instincts, like being brave. I don't even think about it anymore. I just go. And like knowing when you walk in a room, like where to stand, like do I go next to the window, towards the window? Like if someone's doing something, I kind of know where to put myself to kind of cover everything from one position if I have to. And I had just done that movie I just wrapped about a month before I did this film. And it was funny because I had my focus puller, she hadn't done the previous movie with me, but she did this one. And there was this one day at the end of the day, we had to shoot the scene in like 15 minutes. And I just like ran around with the camera like a crazy person. And my focus puller was like, I can tell you've just done this film. Like, I don't know how you just did that. Like, how did you know where to get all those shots? And I was like, I didn't even think about it. I'm just so used to doing it now that I don't really think about it. I feel like really attached to the camera, I think. It's definitely like my favorite place to be, like with the camera on my shoulder. I just feel really comfortable there. And also I worked for Robbie Ryan for like 10 years. So you know, I worked for like lots of people who were like really amazing at handheld. I watched him kind of maneuver his body into strange positions and do it with kind of nothing, like just him with a camera and a lens. I watched him for years do it. So I guess I'm turning into him a little bit, a little bit. Yeah, I think I've just adopted a lot of his attitude to like how to behave with the camera and like how to interact with humans with the camera. I like watched him for a long time and kind of respect him so much. So yeah.
How are you also monitoring lighting? Like, are you, because I found like personally, that's always something that I've been frustrated with because I really like lighting. But I also kind of like handheld operating, but I feel like they kind of don't go together.
It is tough, yeah,
it's tough. Do you have like a monitor that you're kind of...
Yeah, I have like a 7-inch like monitor above my eyepiece, and I have like I have it all really tight, and I have my eye here, and I have like a monitor there, and I'm constantly like looking up and down. And the movie I did I had like there was no rehearsals and stuff. I had a very ND on the front, and I was doing the iris and the ND and at the monitor, and you know doing it all kind of like as I went.
Yeah.
As the sun come in and out, and then you just have to have a gaffer that you can trust. You know, like. You have to have a gaffer that has another set of eyes on the monitor. Like if I'm not going to if I do a rehearsal, I ask them, you know, just keep an eye out for me. If you see some weird shadows or you see a dark patch or you see little things that we can tweak, like please like support me and I'm happy for you to do that. And so yeah, I just have a gaffer that like I can trust really, that keeps an eye out for me because you have to. Or who can like fade things up and down during takes if the light goes, or you know, just like they will come to me after the take and be like, listen, I think it was a bit bright over there, maybe we should like close the curtain, or do you want a little bit more fill here? And like, yeah, I do rely on them a little bit, you know, because I don't always have time to go and watch playback either, because I have to go to the director. And then with this film, it was the kids. I had to really be with the kids a lot to like make them feel comfortable and, you know, like tell them it was good, or like give them little notes in a kind of non-filmy way. So I didn't really have much time between takes to like tweak stuff. So I'd kind of rely on my lighting team to do that.
Did in post, like in color, did you ever go, gosh, I wish I would have had a set of like I would have been able to look at that.
Yeah, all the time. And of course there's some scenes that I think, oh God. And like my husband's a gaffer, he's coming to watch the film tomorrow, so I'm sure he's gonna give me loads of shit. He's going to give me loads of grief, I'm sure.
About what? What do you think he's going to criticize?
Oh, just like, why didn't you put a little tickle in their eyes? Or, you know, why is there a shadow there? Or like, what was that all about?
Well, if he criticizes you, could just be like, is your film at Camerimage?
No, he just loves light. He's amazing at lighting. It's his thing, obviously. So he's like, and sometimes I'll be like, turn that off. And he's like, no, you need it. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. Turn it off. So yeah, he likes really beautiful, perfect lighting, you know, and I'm more of a like, I don't mind if it's a bit messy sometimes, especially for this film. I think it was right. But and then I had one Steadicam day on the film, which is the scene when the kids are like kind of floating and dancing. That's one Steadicam day we had. And then yeah, set up, I just, you know, have the camera on my shoulder. I don't really take loads of stuff off. It's just about balance, you know, making sure it doesn't pull me one side, or I prefer it to be a bit heavier, if I'm honest, because I like the weight. I like to feel it on my body. So I don't really like little cameras on my shoulder because I find the balance is a bit strange. With the Venice, it's so heavy, but I kind of like it.
And it's like shock absorbing almost if you have that more weight.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really bounce around, and I don't really have anything on the bottom. I take it all off, so it's just like as close to my shoulder as I can, so I can feel it. But yeah, there's nothing special really.
I noticed when we were looking at like some BTS that you had shared of the film that you guys went into Rialto mode, and I'm curious, or there's like a Rialto picture, on that Instagram highlight. What scenes did you use the Rialto for, and like what scenarios was it useful on this film for?
We shot in the caravan. Actually, a lot of the caravan scene got cut out of the film, but there was loads of stuff we shot in this tiny caravan, and just to physically get the camera light around on the shoulders of the two people sitting against the wall, we used it there a lot. And then in the car, when we were in the car, again, just to get in the position. And that was it really, to be honest. Nothing in, I thought I was going to use it a lot in the mine because it's so small in there, but I ended up being able to kind of put the camera on my shoulder, squat a little bit and wiggle down. I couldn't turn around, but I could just walk forward and then reverse backwards.
Yeah, there's a lot of space, but only in one dimension.
In one direction,
there.
yeah. And actually the Rialto, like then I'm connected to someone else, then the grip has to carry it, or then I don't have the freedom to move. So I just kind of just got rid of it after a while and just went with the camera as it was, because it's just easier. I think it's less messy and streamlined, you know. Yeah.
I mean, also talking about the mind, like we were curious about the use of headlamps because that's such a primary source of light in those scenes. So I'm wondering, is that something that was scripted? Did those come about as like, were they the result of a discussion that you guys had about how do we light the mine? Or if you could talk more about that.
Yeah, they're in the script, and the film's set in the 90s, and they're like true to their period headlamps, which I kind of adjusted a bit. But yeah, they're in the script, you know, they go down there with the lamp, and in the script there's a lot of stuff like that there's only the headlamp, there's no other light, and in the script there was lots of stuff like it's pitch black, they can't see anything, they can't see where they're walking, they're feeling on the walls. So there was loads of discussions in prep of like, okay, so this mine is really scary, but like we want to see it, right? Like how dark is it? And the director really wanted like a single source of light. She wanted us to feel as if we're experiencing the mine with them, that they couldn't, she only wanted the light to go so far. She didn't want to see everything. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure. Like maybe we need to see the mine, we need to see the walls. And we did a test, like a whole test day in the mine with different lighting setups, like nothing, with just a headlamp with little bits here and there. And I did all degrees of like brightness for her to see. And as soon as I got there, I was like, I know she's just gonna want the headlamps.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, this is the headlamps. And I was like, oh God. There was some stuff I sneaked in, but we brought a lot of stuff down in the grade as well to make it even darker.
It's so interesting. I find that I have that conversation with directors too, like, because I think that maybe it's just like a stylistic thing, but I love, even if it's like a indirect soft source at like 1%, or you know what I mean, relative, whatever that means, you know, this bringing it from black to just like something where you can kind of feel a little bit of the depth of the space. For some reason that I think is so beautiful and kind of, it keeps the tone, but is like kind of freaky. But it's like, I find it hard to convince directors that that is worth the extra time and energy, you know?
I mean, she trusted me, you know, she was like, you know, I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want, but she just had this real kind of vision that she wanted the sound to be a real big part of the scenes too. And because it's about kind of children and loss of innocence, and there's this little kind of magical element, like folktale thing, we don't know. She just wanted it to be like dark and real. She wanted it to feel real. She didn't want it to feel like we'd like lit it or manufactured it. She wanted it to be like the real experience of the kids. And in the rocks of the mine, there's these minerals and they're like silver and it glittered, like glittery. And it was so amazing. I was like, we have to put some light in here to see this. And then the other thing I was really worried about was like, if it's just headlamps, when the kids move their heads, the kids are responsible for the lighting. Like I've got 2 10-year-olds I've never met, and they're going to probably just look at their feet, and that means no one's going to see anything. So I was really freaking out about like, the kids are doing the lighting. So all the time I'm like, okay, Joel, look at Flora. Flora, look at Joel. Okay, Flora, look at the wall now. You know, and she's like looking at the wall to get the bounce off the wall. And then I sometimes would say to her, go behind him and look at me. Like, so she would flare the lens, and I would like tell them like where to look a little bit during the take so I could control the lighting, which was quite kind of stressful.
Cheapest gaffers and
and then I also had because I had loads of different torches. I done like loads of tests and experiments. I ordered like every headlamp I could possibly find in the world, and I bought loads on eBay. And the original like 90s ones, they have this single bulb, but it's really like dim. It doesn't really give you much light. It just wasn't going to do enough. And I really wanted the single source so I could get these nice flares. But it just kind of was really hard to get enough light from one bulb, even though all the things I tried. So I actually like took them apart, and the gaffer and the spark basically put little LED panel in there. And then it went down this, it was controlled by, they've got these pouches that they're meant to be the old batteries. So we ripped out the old lead acid batteries and we put a battery in there and a little Wi-Fi controller. So I could control the kind of color and intensity of their headlamps. If we went into like a really dark patch or they looked at the wall, I could bring it up. And so I had the gaffer controlling the headlamps a little bit, especially in the set where he could have access. And then I had these super bright Chinese headlamps that they use now in mining, in like modern mining. There's like a single bulb LED, single LED thing, and it's so bright and so white and horrible. So I would just I kind of ND'd that and gelled it to match the other ones, and I would use that when they were walking away from camera to walk like down the tunnel, because it was really bright and it lit the whole tunnel in a single source. But I couldn't ever have them look at me with it because it was just kind of ugly and didn't look right. So I had loads of torches. There was a whole prep was just like me obsessing with torches.
Yeah, I think you would never know watching it like that. It's multiple different headlamps for different scenarios.
Yeah, and I put because I was trying so hard to hide the LEDs in the headlamps I was using. So I'd like covered it in Vaseline and I'd like blurred it in the grade and I added flares and stuff in the grade like to make it feel like a single source. Huh. Yeah, there's like one shot in the movie where I used the wrong one because you can see all the LEDs and I was really annoyed at myself for that.
Yeah.
Because the kid turned to the camera and I was like, it's the wrong one.
Yeah, right.
We were so frantic. We only had 5 hours a day with the kids to shoot.
Only 5? Wow.
Yeah, they can only shoot for 5 hours a day because they were 10. And they can only be on set for 5 hours. That's rehearsals, that's everything. So I was kind of a bit of a lunatic, just like running around like with the camera constantly.
So, this is something that we did want to talk about a little bit. 5 hours is not a lot. What were you guys doing for the other, because do you guys do 10-hour days in the UK?
We were doing like 9 because of the kids, just to maximize the time. So we just did 9 hours, I think 9 or 10 hours, yeah. I can't remember if it was continuous stay or like we had a lunch break, but it was like 9 or 10. So we would set up, we would kind of like, I would try to light everything from outside the room so not to kind of upset them or distract them so that we had freedom. So we would kind of, in our head, rehearse block, like where we're going to be, where's everyone going to be. We had stand-ins, there's like 2 stand-ins, so we would like rehearse with them a little bit. We just do everything we could really to be ready. And then as soon as they arrive, we'd kind of send everybody away so the director could like talk them through it and stuff. And then the stand-ins might show them a little rehearsal and then we would just kind of go for it. Yeah. But we were so lucky because they were brilliant. They were so good. They didn't really need a lot of takes. They didn't need a lot of like help. They were just so good. It was such a blessing because I don't know how we would have done it if we'd had people that needed more encouragement and more rehearsals and more time. We wouldn't have got as much as we got, really. And also he like looks so good on camera. So.
He does.
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt with freckles.
I know. Everyone fell in love with him. Yeah. It's so sweet. I met them recently at a screening, but they're so big now, and they look like they're 16. I mean, they're like 13, 14 now, and they've so grown up so much. I didn't hardly like recognize them. It was so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've like captured this moment in their life. That's how I see them because I've watched the film loads. I've graded the film loads. And I only know them as these kids, and now they're like teenagers. It's so weird.
We hope you're enjoying the episode, and now for a quick word from our sponsors. We'd like to extend our gratitude to Fujifilm for their continued support of this podcast and for helping us take the show all the way to Poland. Be sure to check out GFX 102, which is the latest camera in an incredible 90-year legacy. GFX 102 is an exceptional cinema tool for solo operators, commercial creatives, and dedicated cinematographers. Search the Fujifilm USA store or visit a local dealer to find out more. Next, we have CreamSource, an industry pioneer since 2005, designing and building innovative lighting solutions that power productions worldwide. By partnering with some of the best cinematographers, gaffers, and rental companies in the industry, CreamSource leverages expert feedback to provide purpose-built lighting products that address complicated production challenges head-on. A big thank you to SanDisk for their continued support of the show. Their lineup of extreme portable solid-state drives have become a staple on film sets and a personal favorite of mine for how durable, reliable, and fast they are. We also use the SanDisk Professional G-Drive Enterprise-class hard drives to store and transport these special episodes all the way from Poland. SanDisk leads in drive and memory card technology, emphasizing not just storage, but everything worth keeping. Lastly, thank you to Condor Blue for the cages for our cameras that we use to record this show. Condor Blue was created to not only design high-quality production accessories with the filmmaker in mind, but also to stand behind these products with a lifetime warranty, exceptional customer service, and fair pricing. Thank you to all the sponsors for all their continued support, and now back to the rest of the episode.
Yeah, like you captured something I think so special and so tender with like the Whiter Shade of Pale song in particular. And like, yeah, I wanted to hear more from you about what your approach was to capturing that childlike tenderness and how much you got to work with them in pre-production, if any at all. And yeah, just your approach to getting this really like ineffable and kind of special thing on camera.
Yeah, it was something we talked about a lot. I mean, I didn't have any time with them before. I think we went to like Laser Quest once or bowling or something just so they could meet me. And we had talked about maybe doing stuff with the camera so they would get used to it. But they'd done a lot of workshops with the director in the casting sessions, and they'd had a lot of, the camera had always been on them. And the director was like, I think they're kind of fine with it because they don't seem bothered in the rehearsals. So we just kind of didn't do that, but it was something we were thinking about doing. But she workshopped with them a lot. She spent a lot of time with them in prep. So I kind of lost time with her because she wanted to spend time with them. So she had kind of spent a lot of time with them, with their mum and their screen mums. And she wanted them to like develop relationships. They made up stories with their mums about where they would have gone on holiday last year and, you know, like Christmas, what they would have done at Christmas. And so they had these kind of relationships. They understood like their family dynamic and like what their history was. And that was really nice, I think. And they didn't spend too much time together because we wanted them to have this kind of like tension at the beginning where they didn't really know each other that well. And then they were actually like that. He was really awkward, Joel. He was like, I don't want to talk to girls. You know, he was very like awkward. Flora had gone, she went to an all-girls school, so she hadn't really hung out with boys that much. So she was also a bit like, oh, you know, he's like, no, he's weird. So they had this kind of real awkwardness when we started. And then they actually started to kind of like each other towards the end. And kind of, she thought he was quite funny and he thought she was quite smart. So they kind of started to like each other for real. And it was kind of sweet to see that.
Did you ever watch that show, My So-Called Life? Growing up, that's like Jared Leto and what's her name, Claire Danes. Claire Danes, yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. But they're so different. They're from very different. He's from Cornwall for real. Like he's a boy that lives there. He's from there, and he has a real different background, family background. To her, she is like from a more of a middle class family. She lives in kind of like a posher place. She goes to private school. She's like very different education, very different background. Like she wanted to eat like pistachios and sushi every day, and he wanted like chips and Coca-Cola. Like they couldn't have been more different. It was so funny to watch them. But we talked a lot in prep about this kind of, the script is even more, this like, kind of, the script was full of magic and like adolescence and imagination and wonder and kind of capturing like things through child's eyes. And the director wanted it to slowly like fade or slowly, it's this kind of thing about kids, what kids understand about adults. Like we believe everything adults say, and then slowly then something happens, you start to doubt the adults, and maybe you have more of an understanding of the adult world, or that you're being misled or not being told the whole truth. So we talked a lot about this in prep, about we didn't want to look down on the kids, we didn't want to make a kids movie, we wanted to kind of be on their eye line, always be with them. At one point, we were actually going to just frame out all the adults, kind of like chop their heads off or like have them in the background or always be out of focus. Like we talked a lot about how we see the kids, how the kids look at other people, how the kids look at each other. Which, if one of the ideas was this kind of imagination, if it fades, we slowly like took some saturation out throughout the film so that it wasn't as like vivid and bright and be like they have this kind of like childlike imagination at the beginning, and then this darkness, this experience they have together, like they lose their innocence a little bit, and it's not the same. They're not the same kids at the end of the summer anymore. So yeah, we talked a lot about that, lots and lots. We watched loads of even stuff like The Goonies and E.T., where they don't treat kids like they're stupid, like they treat kids like the hero of the movie. So I watched loads of stuff like that, as well as loads of stuff like Petite Maman and The Wonders and Spirit of the Beehive, that Lucy was kind of really loved Spirit of the Beehive. She wanted she like loved the use of lighting and stuff. She always wanted to be looking at textures and atmosphere. And I had the job like 2 years before we shot. So I got the job kind of like during like just after lockdown, between lockdown. And we couldn't shoot for a really long time because we couldn't afford all the COVID testing and stuff. So we had to wait for a really long time. So we had a long time to talk about like how light falls and how you see things. And we talk, you know, I would video like dust falling in my room, backlit dust. And I'm like, that's kind of magical. And she's like, yeah, that kind of thing. Or if you see like a shadow on a wall and it kind of makes a funny shape.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You're like scouting in that way already. It's not things that are specific to the exact logistics of the location. You're scouting like ephemera and phenomena of real life.
And we tried to put like lots of things with glass in the like props, like textures was really important. Like she wanted textured wallpaper. She wanted her to like, you know, feel the wall. She wanted like fluffy things and hard things. And we talked a lot about like nature. And she, in the film, she, you know, she had this thing about this when kids are like before like they're in their teenagers, like they're quite innocent and they're not really maybe aware of their gender. And like the mom, like this point in this girl's life, she's about to get on her period and the boy has like lost his dad. And so we talked a lot about, he's always looking out. He's always looking out at the world. He's like engaging with nature. He has this very physical, you know, stuff. He's talking with the moths and he's got lots of like ropes and tools, and he's like kind of like already being pushed into these like masculine stereotypes, and he's always looking out at the world, and she's almost like trapped in this. We always like try to like have her looking inwards and have her inside a room, and her mum is always like looking at her appearance in the mirror, and she starts to like notice these things that like women do, like her mum's commenting on her stretch marks and that she's put on a bit of weight and maybe not to eat the cake, and suddenly she's becoming aware of all these things that she wasn't aware of before, and she's really uncomfortable. And Lucy really talked to me a lot about all this thing of like masculine, feminine, and these kind of like ideas of what like girls are supposed to do and boys are supposed to do. And so we tried to put a lot of that in the film as well. Like he has all these natural colours and natural fabrics in his costume, and he's always like thinking, and then she's always like looking at herself and analysing herself, and it's self-conscious. And so yeah, there's a lot of that. We talked a lot about stuff like that in prep.
Yeah. Did you have specific conversations with art department about how you wanted to place like mirrors in certain spaces? Like I'm thinking about that scene where like the mom is like kind of sizing herself up in her dress. That's cross-cut with Evie putting her own makeup on, and like mirrors are really prominent in that. And like you were saying, there's such an important role that texture plays in this like threshold between the child and the adult world. Yeah. And the greens and the textures of glass. And yeah, just wanted to hear more about your collaboration with art department on that. Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of mirrors in the script. It was all in the script, you know. It was all about like she's like how like the mom and the girl are like always having like they're starting to look at themselves in the mirror and analyze themselves. And we wanted him to have windows. He was always looking out, and they were more looking in, and like the kind of difference between the two of them. And yeah, like lots of different shaped mirrors, and the sink and the mirror we put in the room because we wanted her to be like in this corner, like kind of trapped looking at herself while he's outside. And the other mum is always kind of like, she's a woman of a certain age who's like got some wrinkles now, and she's maybe got a little bit of a roll here and stuff, and she's conscious of it. And yeah, we talked a lot about that, and the props with art department, you know, like textured things and like things that have a touch, or glass and things that have light, and things we could hang in the windows that might make a shape. And the stickers, the little fairy stickers that slowly start to kind of like rot and peel as she like loses her kind of innocence. So yeah, that was all in the script, and all of like a lot of talks with art department about textures and stuff. Yeah.
Super interesting. I can see it's very apparent that there was coordination between you guys in a good way, you know, like there's like naturalistic world building in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, or it's maybe apparent to other filmmakers because like we know that like all those things have to be added, but like to, you know, the lay person, it just seems like, oh, like this is just the world as you happened upon it. But
And I think the thing that was we talked a lot about as well, he's in his own bedroom, so that is his world and that was his personality. But then she's on holiday, so we were like, how do we get her character and personality into the room? Because her room was kind of like an old lady's room that she's just renting on a holiday. So then it was all with her, like her dictaphone and her stickers, and then that's why she puts the stickers on. So then it becomes like part of her space then, and she has a hamster. And Nana. Yes, we tried to that was the thing I wrestled with, was like, how do we find her identity in this room when it's not her room versus him? I didn't want it to be like an uneven balance between their characters. But a lot of her stuff, I guess, came through her costume and her dictaphone and how she interacts with that and her dad and stuff.
I mean, you also, like you mentioned, obviously, like you have a history of collaboration with Robbie Ryan, and he's been, it seems, an influence on your handheld operating. I'd love to hear more about the influence of that collaboration on your work as a DP now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel it creeping in. I wasn't really aware of it in the beginning. I guess in the beginning I was trying to figure out what I wanted, what my style is, I don't know. And I shot like 3 or 4 whole movies with not a single handheld shot, with like really beautifully composed stuff. But I do find that I'm more drawn to this kind of visceral handheld thing. I think it's the thing I get the biggest kick out of, the thing I feel really close to. And I think Robbie and I did 3 films with Andrea Arnold and Robbie Ryan, and I think they've definitely had an influence on me and taught me a lot about filmmaking and how to capture things in a way. They definitely work in a different way to other people. Like everything's very stripped back, everything feels kind of real and honest, and I've spent years watching them and kind of absorbed it all, I think, without really noticing it.
Yeah, I also saw that you had worked under DPs like Rob Hardy and Chase Irvin, and that's got to be such an interesting way to soak up information and style. And it makes me think a lot about maybe like a couple generations removed from now, of like the type of cinematographers that would come out of these sort of I'm gonna operate for so-and-so, and then once they're busy, I will then shoot for that director. I think about a lot of this group of New York cinematographers in the 70s that kind of came up through working with Martin Scorsese, and that's so. And a lot of, I think, younger DPs now are sort of film school career, and it's maybe slightly changing, but I feel like I can only imagine, because I think I fall more into the, not really that I went to a film school, but film school career, kind of starting the career early. That information would just seem to me so invaluable and interesting.
I mean, definitely. I was an assistant for 15 years, a long time, and I more than that actually. And I was also a PA and a runner, and I've been on every type of set, the tiny indie movies with no money to the biggest movies filming in London, massive Hollywood movies, superhero movies and stuff. So I've kind of seen it all. And I think the thing I noticed when I first started shooting was that I wasn't scared to be on a set. I kind of understood how to behave, and I understood how to talk to people. And I was if I'm asking the art department for something, I kind of know how long it's going to take, or I knew that I wasn't asking for something that was outrageous because I knew it was okay, so I kind of felt like it gave me a lot of confidence to understand. I kind of felt so comfortable on a film set. It's kind of my home. Grew up there, kind of thing. And then I had loads of friends I could call for help too, and if I was struggling with a car rig or a nighttime exterior or some tricky thing, I'd be can I just ask you, I'm thinking about doing this. This is how I think I might be able to do it. We can't really afford that, so maybe this. So I had a support network of people I could ask questions to, which obviously is amazing. And then just different techniques, different directors' approaches. And Chase and Khalil were definitely an amazing. When we spent a month in Africa together, which was just crazy. We had about 8 cameras. It was just me, and we were just slinging things everywhere. We had infrared, black and white film, Super 35, Super 8, GoPros, drones, underwater cameras, Steadicam. It was mental, and there was just cameras everywhere. And, you know, I'm just like kind of used to dealing with that stuff and like watching them work. And, you know, on that job, Chase would be like, hey, Rachel, do you want to operate a camera? I'm like, okay. And then Cleo would be operating one and Chase would be operating one. So I got to like see all of these kind of different ways to work and like different approaches to work. And then some people are super strict and have shot lists and storyboards and they're very methodical and everything is composed and considered and everything's predetermined. So I've seen kind of all of it. I've seen all of the aspects of it, and I think I've taken little bits from everyone. And it depends on the job, you know. Depends on the job, I think, you know, which little piece I take from my memory.
Yeah, film is such a funny thing because I feel like everything and the structure of filmmaking wants you, maybe from a production standpoint, everything wants you to decide. This is how we're going to do it, so we can, you know, determine the amount of money that it's going to cost, and like boom, 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 it's in the box, got it, okay, let's deliver it, you know? Yeah. But really, I find that it's so important to be open-minded to the process of a director, you know, and that's huge. And as a DP, you know, not to always be like, we can't do that, you know? Like,
yeah. I think my more approach is like, honor the actors, give them space, like whatever it takes to make them comfortable. Because I always think like, if you don't get the performance, then like, what's the point? If they don't connect with the audience, then no one's gonna really like invest in the film. And I think then you've lost the audience. I think I care more about the actors and making everyone feel comfortable than like my own work in a way. If a light is bothering someone or there's too many things on the set, I will just take them away because I think I can tell sometimes it's like people are like looking or they have to trip over like 25 flag stands to get to the set. And I just think it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable to put them in that position. It's like, because I've done loads of stuff with non-actors and loads of stuff with kids and loads of improvised stuff. And it just doesn't work. Like you have to just let it go. I'm kind of fine with it now. I'm kind of accept that certain jobs you just have to let things go and it's okay. And actually you get more stuff, you get a better performance. And I always want to make sure the director, like at the end of the day, they've hired me to like make their film with them. So like, is this what you want? Like, I'm not going to force someone to do something. Like if they don't want to shoot an anamorphic, I'm not going to force them. Like the last film I just did, in my brain, I was like, it's going to be anamorphic, it's going to be Super 35, 239, anamorphic, I'm going to shoot this. And then the director was like, no. I was like, oh. I was like, are you sure? And I did loads of tests and I showed her and she was like, no. I was like, okay.
What choice did you land on instead?
We did spherical, and we did 185, and you know, she was right. She was right. As soon as we started shooting, I was like, yeah, you're right. I think it was more me. I wanted to shoot anamorphic. I wanted to do an anamorphic movie, and I was like, this is the one. This is going to be it. I can afford it. We've got a bigger budget. And I was like, it wasn't right for the film. She was right.
Yeah.
So I gave in.
What was the biggest change you saw in the film from how you conceived of it in early pre-production to what the finished product is now?
Do you know, it's like funny because normally it changes so much, you know, where you read the script and where you start and where it ends. And I always think, God, how did we get there? Like, and I used to give myself a hard time when I was like starting out, like, oh, I've not completed the brief, you know, like that's what they wanted. And then we ended up here. And I was always like, how can I move forward and make sure I actually like do what we set out to do? And I feel like for this film, it ended up how we planned it. Like I actually did a kind of seminar with a colorist thing recently, and I got out my original mood board, and it was really close to what the film is. Like it still has the images we originally had have the same heart and soul as what's in the film, and I kind of hadn't realized that until I saw this old mood board, and I realized that we'd had kind of completed the mission in a way. We kind of did what we set out to do. I think the only thing is that there's just not as much of this magical stuff. There was a lot of moths in the script. All these moths were like a little metaphor, and there was some VFX stuff. And the kids, when they're like on the cliff tops, they were actually meant to kind of float a bit like Peter Pan originally. Like they were meant to take off a little bit. We just couldn't afford it. We couldn't do it. We didn't have the time in the schedule to. We would needed a whole day. So some of the magic got left out, but not from anything that we did. It was just literally like a time and money thing. But I still think there's enough of it in the film to make you feel that way. Well, I hope anyway.
Yeah.
Right, like energetically it feels that way, even if it's not quite so like literal fantasy of people literally floating or whatever. Yeah.
And actually now I think it wouldn't have been right in a way. I mean, the amount of discussions and kind of negotiations we had with producers to please let us have a wire, please let us do some VFX, please let us do this. We just couldn't afford it. But I think I like it the way it is now. I'm so used to it now. Don't see any other way.
What are you excited? One other thing I was wondering is, what are you excited about in filmmaking these days?
I think, so what's inspiring me these days, I mean, I'm always drawn to photographs more than films, I think, because I started out as a photographer before. So my photographs always inspire me. And I think just all the different stories that are getting told right now from different voices, I'm in lots of different groups of like young DPs, and I just love all of the different worlds that we're getting to see now. Like there's a vast amount of stories that have been told from completely different parts of the world and different cultures and different like religions and sexualities and everything. And I love seeing all these different voices and different journeys and stuff. That's what I really take a lot from.
I'm really excited about that too.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Finally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming.
No, thanks for having me.
It was so fun talking to you, and I hope that we run into each other more at the festival and keep chatting about stuff.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Peter Pascucci, Ava Benjamin Shorr, David Kruta, Topher Hammond, and with original music by Out of Flux. We would like to extend our thanks to the Cinematography Salon community for supporting our efforts with this show. If you like what we're doing, please consider chipping in at patreon.com/cinematography salon. Every little bit helps. Once again, we would like to express our gratitude to our friends at Fujifilm, Cream Source, SanDisk, and Condor Blue for making these special edition episodes a reality. As always, please follow us on social media at Cinematography Salon on Instagram, or visit us at cinematographysalon.com. There you can sign up for our email list to stay up to date with all of our latest efforts, including additional podcast episodes, in-person events, and more. Stay tuned, and we will see you next time. Thank you.